Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the invitation. I think that this is a great opportunity maybe to give you some highlights on the priorities of the Cyprus presidency and how it's evolving so far. As you know, Cyprus joined the European Union together with Hungary in 2004. So this is also our second presidency. And together with Poland and Denmark, and we'll be handing on the presidency to Ireland, Lithuania, and Greece, which is the next trio, who hopefully will move the files even further. And I would like to mention that before the presidency, there were high-level visits here in Hungary of our Vice Minister for European Affairs, who met with Minister Boca, discussed the priorities and the program that was in the making. And obviously, every program of every presidency is not prepared in a vacuum, but it's prepared as a follow-up of the previous trio program or previous presidency program, and follows what the EU is dealing on a daily basis on certain issues. Of course, I would like to mention that every presidency has a logo and a slogan. The logo, I think you can see there behind. I'll move the camera a bit. It's inspired, like in Hungary, they chose Rubik's Cube. Here in Cyprus, we chose an embroidery pattern that's used in local embroidery in the village of Lefkara, and actually is made of 27 individual pieces, which represent each member of the union. And of course, as it's made by a thread, the thread of unity, which makes the union stronger. And the slogan in our case that was chosen is an autonomous union open to the world, which I heard some very good positive comments from the Hungarian side when I was presenting the priorities in the parliament. And I think it encapsulates exactly the way the union wants to be, more autonomous and open to the world. And of course, in the program, independence is the necessary next step for evolving into the European integration project. The goal of independence runs horizontally across all 5 presidency priorities. It is layered and multifaceted, and independence requires an outward-looking and extrovert approach. The first pillar concerns security, defense, readiness, and preparedness, and autonomy through security, defense, readiness, and preparedness. A more autonomous union is a more secure union. To protect our citizens and defend our interests, we must strengthen our capacity to act independently when necessary, without fear of reducing dependencies, and with the confidence and capability to ensure that Europe can safeguard itself. The multifaceted nature of security, broader security capabilities, and strengthened preventive capacity, guided by a forward-looking 360-degree approach. The Cyprus presidency will work to stand firmly with Ukraine, ensuring continued EU support at all levels. Accelerate implementation of the European Defence White Paper, Defence Readiness Roadmap 2030, and the Preparedness Union Strategy. Reinforce transatlantic relations, deepen EU-NATO cooperation in inclusive and mutually beneficial manner, and cooperation with like-minded partners. Enhance maritime security, freedom of navigation, and critical infrastructure. It's as if a lot of the topics chosen were in advance of what actually we're facing in our world today because of the geopolitical situation. Advance work on economic security, strengthen water security and resilience as a core stability factor, effectively manage migration in both its internal and external dimension, defend democracy and democratic processes, strengthen internal security, law enforcement cooperation, and regulatory effectiveness. Key actions will include the implementation of SAFE and EDIP, the Defense Readiness Omnibus, Military Mobility Package, and other flagship defense projects, facilitate the implementation of the EU Maritime Security Strategy, implementation of the Pact on Migration and Asylum, and conclusion of negotiations on the returns regulation. Guide ongoing discussion on strengthening EU economic security in line with the new joint communication. Advance discussions on water resilience strategy, revision of the Cybersecurity Act, drive forward the democracy package through work in the European Democracy Shield. The second pillar of the priorities is autonomy through competitiveness. Only a more competitive union can yield a more autonomous union. Europe's competitiveness is the basics for resilience and autonomous action. A more competitive Europe will be better placed to secure sustainable growth and deliver on its strategic objectives. The Cyprus presidency will work to promote regulatory simplification, reduce red tape to support inter alia SMEs, complete the single market, crucial for further European integration, mobilize investment, deepen capital markets, and reinforce financial autonomy, strengthen energy security and affordable and predictable prices, ensure cross-regional connectivity, especially for islands, through the resilient digital networks, modern transport links, and key energy corridors, enhance Europe's digital sovereignty for securing the union's digital leadership, advance green transition, preserving ambition while supporting competitiveness, and safeguard agricultural and food systems to ensure fair conditions and stable supply. Key actions in these areas include initiate and conclude trialogues on omnibus packages 4, 5, and 6, advance negotiations on the digital food and feed safety, automotive, environmental omnibus package, advance negotiations on the upcoming Industrial Accelerator Act, work for a political agreement on the regulation establishing the Union Customs Code and the EU Customs Authority, aim for a general approach on the European grids package, advance negotiations with the European Parliament on the regulations ensuring passengers' rights, aim to adopt Council conclusion on new consumers agenda 2530, the EU port strategy, the EU industrial maritime strategy, advance negotiations on connecting Europe facility 2834. Work towards a general approach on the carbon border adjustment mechanism, and follow up on implementation of the CAP strategic plans. The third pillar, which you mentioned before, is one of the issues that are of interest to many of us, is also the enlargement. Autonomy and entails outwardness. It strengthens Europe's capacity to engage globally. Openness, strength through partnership remains a deliberate strategic choice, enabling Europe to act outward with confidence and cohesion. The Cyprus presidency will work to ensure continued EU support to Ukraine at all levels, advance a credible enlargement agenda as a strategic investment, revitalize the Union's engagement with its southern neighborhood partners in the Gulf, promote an ambitious EU agenda with Middle East Gulf partners with deeper strategic cooperation, and reinforce EU presence in the region. Support efforts to deepen cooperation with the US as well as with the UK and other like-minded countries, and promote an open, robust, and sustainable EU trade policy by expanding the network of trade agreements like Mercosur and some others that we have seen already, some movement, dialogue with India, and so forth. Ensure effective implementation and enforcement of existing agreements. Key actions in this area will include the intergovernmental conferences with Montenegro and Albania, advance the implementation and operationalization of the new Pact for the Mediterranean and complementarity with IMEC, informal meeting of heads of states of governments with participation of leaders of 10 southern neighborhood partner countries to launch flagship projects in the context of the Pact. Conference on interfaith dialogue and religious tolerance to foster interculture and interfaith dialogue. Promote implementation of the EU-UK summit's outcomes as well as existing agreements. Advance the implementation of the EU-US joint statement. Support ongoing trade negotiations with strategic partners in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, India, United Arab Emirates, and finalize procedures in the Council for concluding agreements with Latin American and Asian states. The fourth pillar concerns the social dimension, an autonomous union of values that leaves no one behind. The strength of the union lies in its people and in the active involvement of every European. An autonomous union leaves no citizen behind. It exists to protect our shared values, empowered participation, and create an enabling environment in which all can thrive. And the Cyprus presidency will work to reinforce the rule of law, advance affordable housing, safeguard children's rights, promote gender equality, the empowerment of people with disabilities, active aging, support fair and inclusive employment with adequate working conditions, build a more resilient and integrated health system, enhance mental health support, and the key actions will be to support the implementation of the European Affordable Housing Plan. There will be an informal ministerial conference on housing in Cyprus. Prepare council conclusions and high-level conference dedicated to children's well-being. Promote initiatives under upcoming action plan against cyberbullying. Advance and conclude negotiations on the legislative proposals preventing and combating child sexual abuse online and offline. High-level conference on preventing and combating cyber gender-based violence. Work on negotiations on the regulation on social security coordination, conclude negotiations on the Critical Medicines Act, and the high-level conference on mental health with focus on the youth. And finally, the fifth pillar, which concerns the long-term budget. Strategic autonomy depends on credible and sustainable financing with ambition matched by adequate resources. In this context, the 2028-2034 multi-annual financial framework is the key instrument for translating long-term objectives into concrete actions. Here, the Cyprus presidency will work to advance negotiations on the multi-annual financial framework, deliver a mature negotiating box with indicative figures by June 2026, and advance negotiations on key elements as well as the sectoral regulations of the new MFF with the aim of achieving a partial general approach. In other words, we will try to present to the Irish presidency that will take over in June some indicative figures with which she can take the negotiations, discussions forward. There was it was planned to discuss actually between the European Affairs ministers in Cyprus in the informal council, informal ministerial meeting. It was planned for the 3rd and 4th of March, and due to the developments in the region, it had to be postponed. Actually, we postponed all meetings in Sitio, in Cyprus, for the month of March. But we're planning to continue the schedule of the presidency of meetings in Cyprus as scheduled for April and May and June, of course. And the objective is that the meetings that were planned for March will be taking place either online or rescheduled for May. For example, the meeting of the European Affairs Ministers already has a date for May. So they have received the new dates and are preparing for their participation. And I mentioned this meeting because there would have been discussions on the MFF and also participation in the discussions of representatives of the European Parliament. There's also in every presidency an interparliamentary dimension where meetings are prepared between 4 or 5, which culminate in a summit of the presidents of the European parliaments, but the national parliaments. And already one has taken place, 1 or 2 have taken place in Cyprus. Again, one was done online, I think, this week. And there's a few more to follow. And of course, I had the privilege of attending the one organized during the Hungarian presidency here in the parliament. It was very well organized and a very important event, because I think that without the involvement of our national parliaments and not just our European Europarliamentarians, is very important, because they are the ones actually that transform the acquis into laws and regulations that are important for the implementation of the new acquis in every single European Union country. So these meetings will also take place later on. You have the elections in March. We have parliamentary elections end of May. So the parliament was trying to wrap up all these meetings before the elections, and I think they will be able to do so. And I wanted just to give you some figures concerning the meetings in Cyprus. There are 19 informal ministerial meetings planned, and overall 260 meetings in Cyprus. The informal European Council will take place late April. So it's not affected by the event, so this will take place as scheduled. And we expect that approximately 260 meetings overall will take place in Cyprus on different formations and different levels. And about 30,000 participants, press, staff, and so forth will be attending these meetings. From these 30,000, I guess we have to take out a few thousand that were not able to attend in March. But overall, the preparations are ongoing. And I just wanted to mention before closing that the opening gala in Cyprus took place on the 7th of January. And present were also the presidents of Moldova, Ukraine, Lebanon, and some other high-level dignitaries from the neighboring countries. It was a very successful event, and with clear messages, obviously, as far as Ukraine is concerned, and Moldova. And I think it was a very good event that's kicked off the presidency. And of course, there were other events also in Brussels, and presentation of priorities by the president at the European Parliament. I think that's a publicly available speech which anyone can find, and describes quite well the priorities from the perspective of our presidency and our president. And I think that what I could say in conclusion is that as I started a program, the priorities are based on the continuity of the previous presidencies and the program that was already achieved. So I heard many comments when presenting them that a lot of the elements that were important to the Hungarian presidency, for example, were continued by us, and satisfaction was expressed there. I can see that, especially concerning enlargement and the relations with the Middle East neighborhood and the Gulf, and of course Asia and Africa. And what I would say 3 months in the presidency is that every program, every ambitious or not, is subject to the geopolitical developments. I think that what we're seeing today is a preoccupation of many of us, all of us, about what's happening in the Middle East, and Cyprus being the closest to the area, obviously even more. And I would like to express again our thanks for the solidarity expressed by all member states after the single drone attack in the British bases in Cyprus. And I think that it was a wake-up call. And when you look at many of the priorities that we wanted to push forward, obviously for geopolitical reasons, maybe some of them concerning the area might be delayed or left for a later stage because we're still in a crisis situation. Cyprus is not part of this war. We are, and we want to play and continue to play a humanitarian role in this crisis. So Cyprus is basically a safe haven for any humanitarian operations that will be taking place in the area, either evacuation of citizens, if need be, from hotspots, or the transmission of humanitarian aid to countries of the region when the conditions allow the transportation of such aid. So we are at a pretty high level of readiness in implementing two plans that we have. One was Amalthea, which was aid to the Gaza Strip by boat from Cyprus with the participation of the US and some other Gulf countries, and also the Estia plan, which is the evacuation of citizens from areas of conflict using Cyprus as a safe haven. So that one is also ready to be implemented if there is a need, as it was done many times in the past. And we really want to be a humanitarian hub and not part of this conflict. And our relations are very good relations with all the neighbors, I think, will ensure that. And let's hope that things will calm down and we can all look forward to continuing with the implementation of our work, which, as I'm sure Ivan knows better than all of us, how diverse, complicated, and multifaceted the daily work of the European Union is. I was fortunate to work in the EU department twice, once when we applied in the 90s. I was a stagiaire also at the European Union in the late 80s. And later on, just before accession, I joined the ministerial team preparing the last steps to be taken before the accession, 2003, 2004, once I returned from my posting in Berlin. And I'm fortunate to say that I prefer working multilateral affairs from the capital and being posted abroad in bilateral postings, which allow an ambassador to have his own agenda and push his own bilateral issues and not follow the agenda of multilateral organizations, and especially a heavy driven agenda of the European Union. To give you some numbers, we are, as a ministry, approximately 250 diplomats after fresh blood that was injected in the last year. And we have about 57 missions. Unfortunately, including my own here, most of them are only with one diplomat. So the presidency here is done just by me and the staff, the local staff. And in Brussels, we have approximately, for the presidency, 280 staff working in all the different committees. It's a tremendous task. I don't envy them. I wish them all the best and best of luck. But I think we're in good hands, because I just wanted to mention that our current president, Nikos Christodoulidis, was the spokesperson of the EU delegation of Cyprus during the presidency in 2012 as a young diplomat. And one of the people that we hired for the presidency at that juncture later became our Sherpa, and now is our EU Deputy Minister for the European Affairs and in charge of the presidency. So I think that our experience that we garnered during the first presidency has paid off in bringing into key positions people that are very well aware of the European agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. First of all, I would like to thank you for having accepted our invitation by the European Union section of the Hungarian Economic Association. It's a great pleasure for us to welcome you here, and many thanks, Mr. Ambassador, for your presentation of the program of the Cyprus presidency, of the 5 pillars, with a very telling name of the program, Autonomous Union, Open to the World. I think it's a very good slogan for this semester, although all the member states or the rotating presidencies are planning that program, and then there are always unforeseen events. And sometimes it seems that challenging times are becoming more standard than actually an exemption. In that context, we had already a question, but Mr. Ambassador, you partially already answered. The first question was that all the presidency has a strictly pre-established agenda, but then unforeseen events are coming, like the crisis in the Middle East, and how it is affecting your program. You mentioned that some elements need to be delayed. In that context, I was happy to hear that for the multi-annual financial framework, you are still planning to present a negotiating box with indicative figures by June. I think that would be very important for the timely conclusions. So if I understand well, you can confirm that this is still the plan of the presidency to hand over the dossier to the Irish presidency with a paper, with a negotiating box, which already includes indicative figures.
You're very correct. That's the plan. And it was to be discussed early on in March. Now it's postponed for May. But obviously, discussions at technical level are ongoing. And there is some member states that would prefer first an agreement, a political agreement between the leaders that will give the guidelines for this discussion to be taken on, to be put into policy by the technocrats. So therefore, it's interesting to see how this will play off. I mean, you know that there is now extra meetings. Only the foreign affairs ministers, I think, had, just because of the situation in the Middle East, 3 extra teleconferences, council of FAC meetings just this week. Today, our leaders are also meeting in Brussels, and tomorrow. So we all looking with a lot of interest what the results of these 2-day meetings will bring for the Union. But obviously, I think that this unprecedented events in the Middle East, first of all, it's already the 3rd week, so they're ongoing. We don't know when they will finish. Have, to a great extent, hijacked the interest of the whole world. And we will see how events will unfold. But you know better than me that in Brussels, despite what's going on around the world, a lot of issues are dealt with and brought to fruition because of the way the European Union works. So Coreper 1, Coreper 2 will continue to function. They will continue to adopt regulations, declarations. So I am confident that many of the issues will be brought to conclusion, maybe not as many as we hoped because of the exceptional circumstances, but the European Union always generates results. It's the way it was made, that either you want it or not, decisions are taken and policies implemented, which differentiates it to a great extent from other international organizations. So I am confident that a lot of what was mentioned in the program will progress.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. That's very assuring. Staying in the region, we understand that the new Pact for the Mediterranean is an important tool. And how do you see, how can we use this new Pact for the Mediterranean? What additional instruments it can provide us? How it will evolve the relations with our southern neighbors? And coming a bit closer to the current situation, how you see what would be the effect of the Middle East situation for instance, for the tourism sector in this summer. We just have got a question concerning the effect on the tourism sector for the future. So if you would say a few words about the Pact for the Mediterranean and how you see the impact of the Middle East situation on the tourism sector this summer.
Well, if the conflict ends quickly, then I'm sure that the summer season will be saved. We are now, all of us, affected, obviously, by what is happening in the region. But we have a resilience of a sector that survived 2 years of COVID, which gave a lot of lessons to the industry. They're more resilient, more resourceful. So I think it's too early to have other than a general that is going to impact, obviously, the season. Definitely, I would say the Easter holidays for that area may not be a very good idea. But as far as Hungary is concerned, I'm very happy to see that Wizz Air continues to fly. Cyprus is still in the green category. And believe me, from what I hear from everybody who is there, life goes on as normal. Actually, we have now another crisis in our hands there in Cyprus. We had a foot and mouth outbreak, which I know you had also last year in Hungary. So people are more worried about that, and if they will get enough meat for their Easter lambs than what's happening in the region. But obviously the hoteliers and the tourist industry is worried. But the message that we are giving is that despite the single attack, so far everything is normal in Cyprus. And I just wanted to give you, we've been in the region for many years. There have been many conflicts. And the last time there was a missile that entered Cyprus accidentally was during the civil war in Syria, where some 3 missiles about 3-4 years ago ended up somewhere in the occupied areas. One. So there's always the danger because of the proximity. But at the same time, everybody understands the importance, all the actors in the area, the importance of Cyprus as a safe haven. And it's in their interest to ensure that Cyprus stays out of this conflict. As far as the Pact for the Mediterranean, I think that it will be good if things move forward. But politically, I don't know if the continuation of the conflict might actually affect some of the members. But I was trying to find the dates. Excuse me, I cannot, when the meeting was planned. But I think that this will move forward anyway, if not there, maybe in Brussels or some other place, because it is one of our priorities and of many countries that we need to restructure our relations, and especially also in view of the impact of migration the last years from the neighborhood, and the importance of really strengthening as much as we can our relations with that region.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Mr. Ambassador, you were kind to mention the Hungarian presidency, and you made a link between the priorities of the Hungarian and the Cyprus presidency, which I see very well when you mentioned competitiveness, which was also an important element of the Hungarian presidency. And I'm happy to see that it's one of your of the pillar of your program. In that context, if you allow me, I would maybe just put 2 questions. One of them is about the deregulation. There are many proposals on the table to in order to alleviate the administrative burden on the entrepreneurs. I see that you are addressing it, and I will appreciate if you confirm that the regulatory framework in which our entrepreneurs are operating on a daily basis is an important aspect for your presidency. And the other aspect that I would like to ask about, it's also asked in our chat, how we can regulate the artificial intelligence. Do you have any idea or any element of the program which what we could use, or the presidency could use as a program element to use the artificial intelligence in order to raise our competitiveness? If you have any hints about these two issues, I would very much appreciate.
Well, I heard in the news today that AI is going to be offered to businesses in Hungary. So I guess obviously already you're doing something about it, which is very good. I think in general, artificial intelligence and its broad usage, both for business and for the government, is a priority for every presidency, because we want to maintain the important role that we have in the digital world. Obviously, we are lagging behind some other main actors, but Europe always had the idea of promoting this. But I think also we are working on a two-track approach: one, the usage, and second, the regulation. And you know there that many believe that in order to move forward, you cannot regulate, and then that will slow down the research. But obviously, there should be some control. I don't know if you or many of the people listening today, when we scroll through social media platforms concerning the conflicts in the region, we're really left speechless. We don't know what is happening. And I found myself going back to the good old media news channels, because there's such a plethora of fake news concerning the conflict that I hope that more and more people will turn to reputable sources of news to have a better understanding of what is really going on. And on deregulation simplification, obviously, it is a big priority for us. And we hope that we will be able to proceed in all these issues. And as I mentioned before, there are 3 omnibus packages, 4, 5, and 6, which we want to initiate and conclude the trilogues. That means discussions between the Council, the Commission, and the European Parliament. And of course, there are also negotiations of digital food and feed safety and other packages that are ongoing concerning the simplification, because obviously in our efforts to regulate and harmonize, we have created serious obstacles for SMEs and other entrepreneurs to be able to proceed in different fields. And I think that it's about time that we should move forward with this simplification. So it is a priority from what I see for our presidency, and I hope that they will have a fruitful outcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. We have a question from Mr. Zöldréti, who is the president of our agriculture section of the Hungarian Association. Welcoming him. His question is that, given the current situation, what are the chances of reaching a consensus on the common agriculture policy strategy? So in the current situation, how you see that we can reach a consensus? What should be the future of the agricultural policy? How easy to reach a consensus on that? It might not be an easy question, actually.
Well, I have to confess I don't know much about it, and the role of Cyprus will not be to invent the wheel, but be an honest broker and try and move them in the right direction. And you know, we are a country that at the moment of independence was heavily reliant on agriculture. Now I think under 5% of the population is employed in the agricultural field. And I think it's the case for many other countries, but it remains a very important base of every economy. And just listening today to all the discussions about the foot and mouth disease outbreak, we're very happy to receive there the commissioner responsible, and the farmers, you know, the last thing they want is to see their animals being slaughtered. But when they get the assurances both from the EU and the government that they will be reimbursed and their farms will be up and running again once the virus is eradicated, I think this is one of the great support elements of the common agricultural policy, because I remember once we acceded, I don't know if this happened also in Hungary, we were asked to uproot many of our wine growing villages and uproot the vines. And now we're again growing new ones and new wines. And I see the same vitality of the wine industry here in Hungary. I think that it's important to safeguard. I think the benefits definitely outweigh the costs of the common agricultural policy, and I don't see it any time being threatened. Enlargement, that's another question, but because it means you have to split the pie between more countries. So, but I believe that there will be. I don't know how serious the differences are. I have to be honest, but we will do our best to push people towards, push the member states towards agreement, if there is room for it.
Indeed, Mr. Ambassador, thank you for that. Indeed, this discussion on the agriculture policy is going hand in hand on the multi-annual financial framework, and hopefully the future of the agriculture policy will be agreed. The measures will be agreed together with the financial possibilities, but this definitely is going beyond your presidency timeline. Mr. Ambassador, we have one more question. Mrs. Orsolya Szijjártó is also with us, who is member of the presidency of our section of the European Union, actually also an ex-ambassador. Good to see you, Orsolya, also. And she also put a question to Mr. Ambassador. You mentioned the conference on the housing problems of the European citizens. And the question is about, maybe, do you have any further details about what could be on the agenda of that conference, what the presidency would like to address as regards the housing problems and issues of our citizens? Whether you have any background or any additional information on that.
Unfortunately, I don't have much more than just the mentioning that this conference will take place in my notes now in front of me, but I could get back to you with more details. I can't even see from the program of the presidency if it already took part. I don't think so, but it was planned for I don't even have the date in the calendar, so I will have to get back to you on that.
No problem, Mr. Ambassador. I also checking my notes and I didn't find the date either. Thank you very much. If you have any further information later on that, we understand. I mean, we are curious about many details, but we of course cannot expect that all of the details of your program is at hand when we discuss the priorities.
But I will see in the more, because we have a website which is CY 2026 EU. That's the official website of the presidency. And there you have the full program, not just the priorities. And obviously under each heading, I just don't have it in front of me. I brought my laptops, but I'm doing the teleconference now from my phone because I am not very good with computers, maybe in my next life, but I will try and find them and email them to you by tomorrow on both issues, both the Common Agricultural Policy and the Housing Conference, so you can circulate it to your members.
Mr. Ambassador, that is very kind. That is very kind. Thank you very much
My
for
pleasure.
this kind offer. I'm checking our questions. I think we are getting to the end of the questions. Actually, Mr. Ambassador, we might have met something like 16 years ago, because I was visiting your administration before your presidency, before your first presidency and before our first presidency, when we prepared together for the first presidency of Cyprus, and then first of Hungary, and then to Cyprus. And I met many of your colleagues. You might have met those times. And
2012 and 11, I was actually 5 years in Serbia before you went to Serbia, because I was checking your CV. And then I was in Lebanon for 5 years. So my contribution to the Cyprus presidency was to organize a trip of the EU ambassadors to Cyprus, because we were all worried of a possible evacuation from Lebanon because of the civil war in. So it was unique in the sense that EU ambassadors were taken on a trip abroad to another country, but a necessary one, because, you know, we were living under the possible need to evacuate, as they are, I guess, now. I mean, just to mention, I've been dealing with crisis management. I headed the 2006 evacuation reception in Cyprus, so we helped about 70,000 third nationals, including Europeans, to evacuate from Lebanon and so forth. So once they realized I could do the job, I was never asked whenever I returned to the capital. So I was given the task of consular crisis management. And even recently, before coming here in 2023, we had some small evacuations from Sudan, which again, we activated this STIA program that we do often. And it was a successful evacuation. There were no Hungarians at that time. So your ambassador there, Christina Lagos, was lucky enough not to have to come to the airport or to the port of Larnaca. They were airlifted by British and Australian planes, and then received in Cyprus and taken on. So I was not given a choice of my duties when in the ministry. So it's when I was younger, I was able to do EU affairs also. So after I was given the title of a crisis management expert, so I left the EU career.
Okay, Ambassador, thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. I think we have arrived to the end of our questions, and also we filled in our 1 hour slot for this discussion. So, Mr. Ambassador, I would like to warmly thank you for having accepted our invitation on behalf of the EU section of the Hungarian Economic Association. And I would like to wish you every success to the presidency, to your job in Budapest. And I also hope to see you once in, not just on the screen, but personally, So thank you very much again. This discussion has been recorded, not just streamlined, so our colleagues may watch it later on our YouTube channel. Everyone is welcome to do so when time is convenient for them. And then with that, I will conclude our discussion, thanking again Mr. Ambassador Mavrommatis for his kind presence. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you very much, colleagues, dear colleagues.
Thank you.